In the days of King A, the mighty ruler of 127 provinces spanning from India to Kush, he reigned in unmatched splendor from the citadel of Susa. It was during the 3rd year of his reign that King Xerxes, in a display of his vast wealth and majesty, invited the nobles and officials of his kingdom, military leaders, princes, and provincial governors, to a grand banquet. For a full 180 days, the king exhibited the glory and splendor of his kingdom. When the 6 months of celebration concluded, the king hosted a second banquet, this one lasting 7 days, in the magnificent enclosed garden of the royal palace. This feast was open to all within the citadel of Susa, from the least to the greatest. The garden was adorned with white and blue linen hangings, fastened with cords of purple and silver and draped on marble pillars. Guests reclined on couches made of gold and silver, set upon a floor of mosaic made from precious stones, marble, and mother of pearl. Wine flowed freely in golden goblets, each one unique, and guests were permitted to drink without restraint, for the king had commanded his stewards to serve each man as he pleased. Meanwhile, Queen Vashti, the wife of King Xerxes, hosted a separate banquet for the women of the royal palace. On the 7th day of the celebration, as King Xerxes' spirits were high with wine, he summoned 7 of his eunuchs, Mehuman, Biztha, Harbona, Bigtha, Abagtha, Zethar, and Carcas, and commanded them to bring Queen Vashti before him, adorned in her royal crown. The king wished to display her beauty to his guests, for she was lovely to behold. However, when the eunuchs delivered the king's command, Queen Vashti refused to come. Her defiance enraged the king, and his fury burned within him. Custom dictated that King Xerxes consult his advisors, the wise men who understood the times. Among these were 7 nobles of Persia and Media, Karshena, Shethar, Admatha, Tarshish, Meres, Marsena, and Memucan, men who had privileged access to the king. Turning to them, the king posed his question. According to the law, what must be done to Queen Vashti, for she has disobeyed the command I sent her through my eunuchs? Memucan, speaking before the king and the nobles, declared, Queen Vashti has wronged not only the king but also every noble and citizen in the vast kingdom. Her refusal will become known to all women, who will then disrespect their husbands. They will say, even Queen Vashti defied the king's command. Such behavior will spread among the women of the nobility, and there will be no end to contempt and discord. Memucan advised, if it pleases the king, let a royal decree be issued, an irrevocable law of the Persians and Medes, declaring that Queen Vashti is never again to enter the king's presence. Let her royal position be given to someone more worthy. This decree, proclaimed across the entire kingdom, will ensure that all women, from the least to the greatest, respect their husbands. The king and his nobles found this advice agreeable, and so the king acted on Memucan's proposal. He issued a decree, sending dispatches to every province in its own script and language, proclaiming that every man should be ruler of his household and speak in his native tongue. Thus, Queen Vashti's defiance marked the beginning of a new chapter in the reign of King Xerxes. After Queen Vashti's removal, King Xerxes sought a new queen. Beautiful young women were gathered from all 127 provinces, and among them was Esther, a Jewish girl raised by her cousin Mordecai. Esther was taken to the king's palace and placed under the care of Hegai, the eunuch in charge of the women. She quickly gained his favor and received special treatment, including beauty treatments and the best accommodations. Esther concealed her Jewish identity as Mordecai had instructed her. After months of preparation, she was presented to King Xerxes. The king was captivated by her beauty and charm, and he crowned Esther as queen, bestowing a royal banquet in her honor. Meanwhile, Mordecai uncovered a plot by 2 palace guards, Bigthana and Teresh, to assassinate King Xerxes. He informed Esther, who told the king, giving credit to Mordecai. The conspirators were executed, and Mordecai's deed was recorded in the royal chronicles. Haman, a high-ranking official, was promoted by King Xerxes. All the king's servants bowed to Haman, but Mordecai refused, explaining that he was a Jew and could not bow to a man. Enraged, Haman sought revenge, not just against Mordecai but against all Jews in the empire. Haman convinced King Xerxes to issue an edict for the destruction of the Jewish people, claiming they were disobedient to the king's LA3Ws. The king agreed, and Haman cast lots, or pur, to determine the date for the massacre, the 13th day of the 12th month, Adar. The decree was issued throughout the empire, plunging the Jewish community into mourning and despair. When Mordecai learned of the decree, he tore his clothes, put on sackcloth, and wept at the palace gates. Esther's attendants informed her of his distress, and she sent a messenger to learn the cause. Mordecai urged her to plead with the king for the lives of her people. Initially hesitant, fearing the death penalty for approaching the king uninvited, Esther eventually agreed. She told Mordecai to gather all the Jews in Susa to fast and pray for 3 days. She and her attendants would do the same. Then she resolved, "If I perish, I perish." On the 3rd day, Esther dressed in her royal robes and approached King Xerxes. When he saw her, he extended his golden scepter, sparing her life. She invited the king and Haman to a banquet she had prepared. At the banquet, the king asked Esther for her request, promising to grant it even up to half his kingdom. Esther, however, invited the king and Haman to a second banquet the following day, saying she would make her petition then. Haman left the banquet in high spirits, but his joy turned to rage when he saw Mordecai still refusing to bow to him. At his wife Zeresh's suggestion, Haman had a gallows built, intending to hang Mordecai the next day. That night, King Xerxes could not sleep and ordered the royal chronicles to be read to him. He was reminded of Mordecai's earlier act of loyalty in exposing the assassination plot. Realizing that Mordecai had not been honored, the king asked Haman, "What should be done for the man the king delights to honor?" Assuming the king meant him, Haman suggested a lavish public display, dressing the man in royal robes, placing him on the king's horse, and parading him through the city. To his humiliation, the king commanded Haman to do this for Mordecai. Haman obeyed, leading Mordecai through the streets. Afterward, Haman returned home, humiliated and distraught. At the second banquet, King Xerxes again asked Esther for her request. She revealed her Jewish identity and pleaded for her people's lives, exposing Haman's plot to annihilate them. Furious, the king stormed out. While he was gone, Haman fell on Esther's couch, begging for mercy. When the king returned and saw this, he interpreted it as an assault on the queen. One of the king's attendants informed him of the gallows Haman had prepared for Mordecai. The king ordered Haman to be hanged on the very gallows he had built. Thus, Haman's life ended, and his plot began to unravel. Esther was given Haman's estate, and Mordecai was elevated to a position of high honor. However, the original decree against the Jews could not be revoked, as Persian law was irrevocable. Esther pleaded with the king to save her people, and he allowed her and Mordecai to issue a new decree. The new edict permitted the Jews to defend themselves against any who attacked them. This decree was sent out swiftly, bringing hope to the Jewish community. When the appointed day arrived, the Jews defended themselves and defeated their enemies. In Susa alone, they killed 500 men, including Haman's 10 sons, who were also hanged. Across the provinces, the Jews were victorious, but they did not plunder their enemies. To commemorate this great deliverance, the Jews established the Feast of Purim. This annual celebration marked the reversal of their fate, from sorrow to joy, from mourning to celebration. Mordecai rose to a position of prominence, second only to King Xerxes. He was a man of great influence, working tirelessly for the good of his people and seeking their welfare. The story of Esther concludes with a testament to his leadership and the faithfulness of God in delivering his people.